Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We got people from across the world joining us for what might be one of the best moments they spend all week. Of course, it's not because of me, it's because of you, Nick.
Uh-oh, you're
And
hyping
so,
us up now. Now we gotta deliver.
that's
It
why
could be the
everybody's here.
it could be the worst moment of the week. You never know.
No, 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 that's impossible with what we've put into today. And so Nick Cegelski, the LinkedIn legend, 43,000 plus followers, salespeople around the world listen to every single word he says. I know I do. He's got a podcast that's approaching nearly 1 million listens a year. And so he's got the attention of the entire sales community. And we're lucky enough to have him here today to give some of his thoughts and ideas back to us. And so when we looked around what was important to the woodpecker and sales community at large, a lot of the things that you guys are sharing and saying right here, we feel and felt and wanted to do something about it and give you a clear approach that whether you took a piece or the whole system that we're about to share with you today, something that could spark a little bit of inspiration, a slight shift in what you're thinking and doing to help unlock another next level of results. So, Nick, here we are. We got the problems. Everybody knows what a funnel looks like. You and I spent a good amount of time prior to today's session jumping into those pain points and problems. And so if you could spend a little bit of time right now going over your view into what are the biggest pain points and problems the modern full sales cycle salesperson is going through and some of the solutions that we're going to cover today.
Yeah, it was interesting looking in the chat when I was looking at people saying why they decided to come here. And if you decided to come here, thank you. I wanted a chance to say that also. Um, there's a lot of information around. I'm sending more emails than ever. I'm making more calls than ever. It's really, really hard to go from prospect has no idea who you are and what they do to prospect says, oh, this sounds moderately interesting. Yes, I'd like to book a meeting with you, Mr. or Mrs. Salesperson. And so it's extremely, extremely challenging to come up with a system to regularly book meetings with prospective customers. I think about to when I was a new salesperson and I got handed a book of accounts, a list of like 1,000 companies that I was supposed to call. And I didn't really have any sort of way to work through who was I going to contact at those accounts? What was I going to say when I called them? What was I going to write in my emails? What was the right sort of rhythm of touch points? Was I supposed to be calling them every single day? Was I supposed to be calling every single week? Was I supposed to be leaving a voicemail? What the heck did I write in my emails? And so if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. And one of the things that I like to talk about is you should plan your attack before you attack your plan. And so if you don't have a plan of attack, it's a good thing that you're here today because we're going to talk about the right way to sort of structure an outbound campaign or cadence to get in contact with somebody that you'd like to book a meeting with.
You know, one other thing I'd love to bring up, and I think it's such a perfect merger of your methodology and Woodpecker's technology. And so as we go through things here today, you're going to see his exact words, his exact scripts, his exact emails, all modeled and built into a pre-designed Woodpecker campaign that will allow you, if you see here in the corner, you can get slides, take your phone and scan the screen. That will send me an email to know that you want a copy of this, and you'll be able to just copy and paste this into Woodpecker campaigns. And so I'm going to point out the timing and I'm going to point out the features that I think are really unique that help enable what Nick does, because I've looked around and I don't think every single cold email tool does what it needs to do in order to fully get what Nick does out of this. And so, Nick, I think you once said something to me a while ago, and I'd love to cover it one more time. It was something along the lines of, you know, let the system do what the system does and let the people do what the people do. And so you had a more eloquent way of saying it. If you could say it
Yeah.
again.
Well, when you're prospecting, there are certain things that only a human being is really equipped to do and handle with skill. Maybe writing that first email where you do include some research or personalization, or picking up the phone and making a masterful cold call. And then there's things that a machine can do, that automation can do, bumping that email, following up, reminding you to stay on track with your contact strategy. And so what you want to do is use a tool like Woodpecker so that you don't have to keep track of where you are in your contact strategy or to do the bumps and follow ups. so that you can focus more of your effort onto the extremely high yield things. And so, yeah, you should only be focusing your time and effort and energy on the things that only you can do, and then let the machine do everything else. And we'll talk about how to put that into practice in a moment here.
Fantastic. And so I hope everybody's had a chance to see this slide or see this image. It was on social, but this is the outline of everything that we're going to cover today, everything that you're going to get step by step, word by word, in a way that, well, Nick is most, I would say, qualified to share with us. And so, uh, you want to kind of quickly go over each one of these steps before we dive into the practical tactical?
Yeah, I'll talk about, and folks, if you have questions, throw them in the Q&A because we're going to be doing a follow-up session on this also. But um, there's a couple different attributes of this outbound campaign. And I think it's important to understand the backdrop of all of those attributes before getting into the individual discrete steps, because you might decide, hey, I'm going to take this, I'm going to steal this, but you might want to make some tweaks and changes. And so understanding the foundation behind it is important. The first piece, and this is where a lot of salespeople screw things up, is your job as a salesperson is to make it abundantly clear to your prospect that you are specifically reaching out to them to have a one-on-one conversation. And you are trying to differentiate yourself from all of the marketing stuff that shows up in their inbox on a weekly or monthly cadence. Most salespeople do not follow the principle of density in their outreach. And what I mean by density is if you are waiting a week or 2 weeks in between touches to your prospect, that's way too long. You'll see in the first part of this sequence, really in sections 1 and section 2, I'm calling, I'm emailing, I'm contacting them on LinkedIn repeatedly within the first week. There's a lot of density here. I want to spike and get their attention. And if they say, hey, Nick, I'm not interested in learning anything from you, I'm not interested in talking, fine, that's a good answer. But expecting somebody to reply to me if I show up in their inbox once a week, that's marketing's job. Let marketing send out a weekly email. Let marketing send out a monthly newsletter. Your job is to signal to them, hey, I am indeed a real human being trying to get in touch with you. And so the first half, section 1 and section 2, there's a lot of density. There's a lot of calls. I'm connecting with them on LinkedIn. There's a multi-channel element to here. The back half of this sequence, you'll see section 3, there is a couple pieces of sort of automation embedded. I continue to call, I send them an email. I'm doing a couple things that are maybe a little bit more unconventional to try to get a little bit more juice for my squeeze. And then the very last section, section 4, that's when I'm doing what we talked about earlier, where I defer to the automation and basically switch to auto emails for the remainder of the campaign. Once about a month goes by, 25 days, I'm moving on and I'm going to contact other people. Yes, I could continue to reach out for day 26, 27, 28, and beyond. But one of the other attributes of this is I think you have to respect the law of diminishing returns, which means there's a decay curve related to the amount of work that you put into your prospecting here. So at a certain point, you're actually better off giving up on that prospect and going and finding somebody else. So while if I prospected them for another 25 days, yeah, I might get a couple more responses. That effort is better allocated onto new prospects. And so the intent here is to say, hey, I'm going to be extremely aggressive for a month with dense outreach, using automation where appropriate, using front-loaded effort. You're going to see there's a lot of calls in the first half of this sequence. And then if it doesn't work, I'm moving on with my life and finding new people to contact.
I love the segue of moving on. So let's jump right into day one right here. I
Yep.
know that there are two options here. There's a hyper personalized one that where you send out a well researched single email, and then there's also the option for those who are sending more of a automated campaign from the beginning with a little less personalization to drop it into a Woodpecker campaign. And so if you could go through the thought process and what's in front of us right now.
Yep. So what we're looking at is the proxy that we're using for today's campaign, these emails, is when I used to sell software that was it was a time tracking software for law firms. I'll give you the 8 seconds on it so you know sort of context wise. Most law firms, the attorneys have to track the time that they spend working for their clients so that they can send them a bill. They bill hourly. And so I sold a tool that would track time for attorneys. It was a plugin on their computer that would track what programs they use, and it would create a bill for them. And so you'll see I'm attacking a lot of the problems that that software solved in um, in these emails. So I start the campaign with an email and a LinkedIn, which are two touches that are intertwined with each other. The reason that I am doing that is, for me, my first email, I want to front load my effort. And that first email, I want to be a personalized email, to the extent of I want to do 3 to 5 minutes of research max on the person. That gives me enough time where, if I'm extremely, extremely focused, I can find 2 or 3 tidbits that help me determine, hey, this person's worth contacting. Um, and I can include something about them to get their attention. The reason that I'm starting with that is that research is going to inform downstream what I say when I cold call them, how I have a conversation with them down the line, which is why I'm starting with that manual email of step one. It's going to inform a lot of the stuff that I do further into the sequence. If you can't find anything, if you can see where it says comment goes here, that's just my prompt in Woodpecker to say, hey, Nick, you need to do some research and insert some piece of personalization in the beginning. And so that piece is important. The other piece, the other reason that I'm starting with the email is there's a good chance that there's going to be a bounce. If I email the person, I might have bad contact information. They might have left. And so I want to get that out of the way before I do a lot of the other work in the sequence. Questions on any of that, Justin, before I keep talking about some other elements of this first email?
Yeah, two things. One thing I remember you said to me and I really liked a lot was, and I want to emphasize what you just said around the bounce. And so I like how in some of our prep work for this, you had mentioned that you want to find out, do they even work there anymore? Is the person even worthy of a contact? Because if you later on in the sequence do things that are not, I would say, easily discoverable, then you might be calling, you might be wasting energy and effort. And so I feel like having that first email is kind of a litmus test to see, is this even a good contact to continue? And a bounce might actually be a good thing to help you know where to redirect your efforts.
Correct. I can move on with my life. And so a couple elements of this email here. I saw a couple questions about subject lines, and you'll see we have the subject line blank for this email. That's actually by design. My first email, because I'm going to bump it up 2 or 3 times in this cadence, I want that subject line to be something that gets their attention and gets them to open the email. Too many sales emails that I see scream, I am a sales email. My number one piece of advice, if you're sending sales emails on the subject line, is don't make it about you. Make it about them whenever possible. If you can make the subject line something that isn't scream, hey, this is a sales email, you're going to get way more opens. And it's really, really hard to reply to an email if you don't open the email. And so your subject line is used to get them to open the email in the first place. And that's sort of where that research step is going to come into play with the comment. Let's talk about the messaging. Do you have questions on that? Folks, do you have questions on the personalization element before I move into the sort of psychology behind the email that I wrote here?
And I'd also like to point out that in Woodpecker, there is the timing sequence. And so I'm going to go through as you go through this and
Yep.
verbally. And so everyone should be writing this down if they want to add this to their own sequence in Woodpecker when the scheduling aspect is. And so if day one, obviously this one is just you would schedule immediately. And so I'm going to keep kind of highlighting back to the schedule for this one is 2 days. The schedule for this one is 1 hour. And so that'll be easy for anybody who wants to take this later and build it into their campaigns.
Yep. A couple folks are asking for examples of personalization, so I'll talk through that. What I don't want to do is bait and switch them. What I don't want to do is say, Justin, I saw that you went to XYZ University, and then immediately switch into most attorneys are sick of accounting for every billable moment of their time. In reality, when I do this, I'm probably going to have to have some sort of segue to go from, hey, here's what I found about them, to here's the problem that I'm calling out. And so I actually have a couple people are saying, how much can you really find in 3 to 5 minutes? Well, you can actually find a lot if you are extremely, extremely focused and you know what you are looking for. What a lot of salespeople screw up in their research step is they think that if I'm prospecting Justin, I need to go find every single last thing about Justin. That's actually not the case. If I'm prospecting to a law firm, which I was in this email here, what I need to figure out is there anything related to Justin and something that he said in an interview or something about his company or something that I can find on his LinkedIn that can relate to this problem that I'm calling out here. And so what you need to do if you really want to be efficient with the time that you spend for your research, you need to decide up front what are the things you're looking for. What are the 5 to 7 triggers that you can use in your personalization so that you're not starting from scratch every single time. It's impossible to get if you know if you know what you're looking for in advance, you'll be able to get it done in 3 to 5 minutes. If you don't and you're working with a blank slate, yeah, you are going to spend forever trolling the internet, just like stumbling and bumbling around. And so define upfront what are the things that you are looking for. My go-to is podcast interviews, YouTube interviews, and any sort of press on the person that I am prospecting. Because almost always I can find a quote that they said, or I can find a topic that they talked about and use it to relate to the problem that they solve. So an example might be if I'm prospecting Justin and he's the chief attorney at this law firm that I'm prospecting, I might go find an interview that he gave on a podcast. And I might scroll, I won't listen to the whole podcast. I might literally open my podcast player, go halfway through, and literally start playing it at the 17-minute mark. And then I listen for 2 minutes, and Justin might say something along the lines of, yeah, we're really trying to make our law firm more efficient. And then all I need to say in the beginning is, Justin, caught your interview on the XYZ law firm podcast. Love your take on making your law firm more efficient. Boom. When Justin sees that in his inbox, first of all, the subject line there is going to be something along the lines of your interview on XYZ podcast or listened to your interview on XYZ podcast. Well, that's about Justin. He's going to open that because he gave that interview. That's not something that a marketing machine could have blasted out. That's something that a human being wrote. And then he sees in his preview text, caught your interview on, and then he'll have to open the email to see the rest. I'd open that email if someone told me they listened to my appearance on a podcast. And then what I'm doing is I'm calling out something that he said and then connecting it to the problem. What I have to do again is know what I'm looking for upfront and have a system for how I'm going to do that research step. If I just decide, hey, I'm going to go listen to the full podcast interview and then the 6 other podcasts Justin has done, I just spent 2.5 hours researching one prospect who might tell me, Nick, I have no interest in talking to you. I don't like your haircut. Okay, shouldn't have done that. You've got to have a defined criteria of what you're looking for up front and then use that in the research piece. I just talked a lot at you guys and I want to make sure I'm keeping us on track.
Yeah, and so I think we're going to dive into the deep aspects of the nature of this question in our live Q&A session we're going to do next week. And so Damien, who's helping out in the chat, he'll be dropping that link sooner or later. And so you'll see a link to join that session where, again, the deep aspects of the questions and personalization we'll be handling next week in a live Q&A. And so really want to cover the major parts of the playbook for today. So that way everyone who is here today can get the most out of what's here for everybody. And so any kind of final thoughts you want to cover here on day one?
Yes. So the only other piece, we just talked through the subject line and the personalization piece. Let's just talk through briefly the psychology of what we're doing next. You will see this email is extremely short. I'm not talking about myself or my company really at all. I'm almost exclusively talking about the problem that we solve. Most attorneys are sick of accounting for every billable moment of their time. That language is extremely intentional. I'm being pretty gritty with the language. Attorneys are sick. I'm not saying most attorneys feel they need to track their time more effectively. I'm talking about the pain. I'm attacking the problem. I'm not attacking the benefit. I'm not saying most attorneys want to bill more time. I'm saying most attorneys are sick of accounting for every billable moment of their time. And I pour it on a little more. Recreating days worth of work to build a timesheet can be brutal. That is all problem-centric language. Not talking about my company at all. Problem-centric language. The last piece, attorneys use Ping's, that was the name of my company, timesheet synthesizer to save hours a week timekeeping. A very interesting nuance here that I want to call out is I did not say Ping's timesheet synthesizer helps attorneys save hours a week timekeeping. The hero of that sentence, the subject of that sentence is attorneys. the people that I'm prospecting, we're just a tool that they use to help save them time. But attorneys is the hero of that sentence. And then the last piece, open to learn more. I'm not saying, would you like to book 15 minutes Tuesday or Thursday? I want to make it as simple as possible for the other person. And so I'm simply saying, would you like to learn more? Let them say yes, and then handle the logistics of booking and scheduling. I want to eliminate the decision overwhelm for the other person. So that's the psychology around how I set the email up.
And just like the sequence, we're front loading this workshop and webinar to cover probably the most important parts of it. And so spending a little bit more time up front right now, I think is going to show the trickle effects of how what you say and do now shows up in the future steps and stages. And so I'm going to move on to day one, part two. And so for those of you who want to put this directly into your Woodpecker campaign, the schedule for this one is wait 1 hour. And so first one to be scheduled immediately. This one would be wait 1 hour. And so tell us a bit more about LinkedIn connection requests.
So I'm doing this with the intent of I want them to see my name again and again and again. I want to spike their attention. I'm not waiting a week to then request them on LinkedIn. I want them to say, wait, I've seen that name in my inbox. Now I've seen it on LinkedIn. Okay, this is indeed a real human being trying to get a hold of me. Um, I really take one of two approaches with LinkedIn. I'm either going to swing for the fences and write an extremely personalized LinkedIn connection request, where I might say something that almost mirrors the first half of that prospecting email. Hey, Justin, I caught your interview on the XYZ podcast. Really enjoyed your take on it. Hoping to connect here. I might literally be like, hey, use that personalization in the connection request. If I didn't find anything that I could use in the personalization, I'm either going to send this message or I'll just send them a blank connection request. So either swing for the fences and write something that's extremely personalized or send them something really basic. Again, the psychology is I want them to say, okay, I've seen this person again and again and again.
One thing I'm going to let the cat out of the bag a little bit to tease everybody who's listening right now is right now in Woodpecker, you can build this into your sequence and stages based on where you want to manually be reminded to when to do this with the copy and content. As you can see here, you can kind of set the disposition, but in the not too far future, we're working on some product integrations that will actually allow you to automatically do things like this. And so if you'd love to have automated Woodpecker, LinkedIn actions, give a little bit of some thumbs up in the chat. Show us that that's something you'd love to hear and see. And then I'm sure that in the next couple of weeks to months, we'll have some answers to how and where and when you can start doing that. And so no longer do you have to manually do it. You could do it automatically. And so, yeah, right, Devin, it's going to be amazing. I'm starting to play around with it now. And I'm like, oh, my sequences and all that done for me would be fantastic. All right. Look at all massive. Awesome. All right. So, LinkedIn's powerful. You're on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. So many of our B2B prospects, if you're in B2B, you're on LinkedIn. It gives us an opportunity to show up in the world beyond their inbox, another touch point. And so we're really starting to get into the multimodality, the omni-channel aspects of things. And so I'm going to move on to the next one, unless there's anything else you'd love to cover here, Nick.
I will address this really quickly because Debbie and a couple people have asked it in the chat. If you're going to do 3 to 5 minutes of research on each company contact, how many contacts are reasonable to do this cadence with? I don't know. How much time do you have in your day? It depends totally on your role. If you're an AE and you're showing demos and you're negotiating pricing and you're going through proposals, you might only have an hour a week to do your prospecting. If you're an SDR or a BDR and you have more time, you might allocate more time. So it really depends on your role and what you're doing. My advice is not going to be around the number of contacts or companies. It's more going to be around how you should set up your day. My recommendation is you spend 1 hour on Monday finding companies you're going to prospect. 1 hour on Tuesday, finding contacts at those companies. Then you can start doing your prospecting. So what you want to do is segment the individual steps of finding companies, then finding contacts, then actually executing on this stuff into separate blocks. What I don't recommend is like sort of trickling throughout your day and doing 15 minutes of research on 10 o'clock, 15 minutes at 3 o'clock. Like you should really be focused time blocking this stuff. So it's tough to answer without knowing exactly what you do. A couple people had asked that, so I wanted to address it, but we can keep moving, Justin.
Yeah, and my next slide actually is really speaking to that point. And so one of the things you had said earlier, Nick, was, let the machines and the automation do the things that are automated, and then let the people do the things that they can only do. And so, for those of you who are using Woodpecker, you obviously have seen something like this before. If you haven't seen Woodpecker, actually, when you build out these sequences, you do it once, you load up your lists, you'll then have a place to come to keep that focus on a day-to-day basis. And so for each task and for each prospect, it will know where they are in the sequence and then give you a singular place of focus to come to and to know when to make the call. And as you saw before, there'll be the little script in there that you can borrow from Nick or put your own in there. There'll be the LinkedIn task to send a connection request and what to say and what to do. As Nick says, you plan your attack and you attack your plan. And so this is actually how it works inside of Woodpecker. Once you plan things out and then you attack your plan by coming into here on a day-to-day basis to know what to follow up and to do. And so these things are right there waiting for you underneath tasks inside of each campaign. And so that way, like Nick said, you can block that time, you can see what you need to do, possibly even have a VA do some of this work if it's manual, and move on with your day to stay on that highest focus stuff. And so I wanted to point that out to those of you who are not using this feature or don't know about this feature or using another service and tool and want to say, oh, wow, that would be great to have that accountability and focus for myself on a day-to-day basis. And so we're moving on to day 2 here. We got some cold calling. We got to pick up the phone. Let's talk about what's going on here, Nick.
This is what makes everyone's heart pound and their palms sweat a little bit, is picking up the phone and making a cold call. Again, the reason that this is integrated into the campaign is I'm trying to prove I'm a real human being and I'm trying to get in touch with you. Marketing isn't going to do that. And so let's talk about when you make cold calls. First, again, to my point earlier, you want to batch and focus your cold calls. My recommendation is treat cold calling like a workout. Get it done first thing in the morning and confine your cold calling just to an hour in the morning. Do nothing but cold call. Don't check your email. Don't respond to prospects that have emailed you. Don't be on LinkedIn. Don't look at Instagram. All you're doing is cold calling. It is a focused hour sprint. When you pick up the phone and you cold call somebody out of the blue, the worst 2 openers to use are, Justin, this is Nick Cegelski. How are you doing today? Or, Justin, this is Nick Cegelski with 30 Minutes to President's Club. Did I catch you at a bad time? The reason that you should not use those cold call openers, one, if I ask, how are you doing today? You can't honestly tell me that if you're going to be cold calling 30 CFOs in a row, you care about the individual days of each of those CFOs. And even if you truly, truly do, the other person doesn't think that you do, because that's what every salesperson says when they make a cold call. So throw that one in the trash. The other one, if you ask, hey, did I catch you at a bad time? You're making a cold call. Of course, the answer is going to be, yeah, you did. And then you're going to hear click. So when I cold call somebody, what I want to do is I want to address the questions that immediately pop into somebody's mind when they get a cold call out of the blue, which are, who is this person? Where are they calling from? Why are they calling me? And how long is this going to take? Because I have a job to do. And so when the other person picks up the phone and they go, hello, what comes out of my mouth is, hey, Justin, this is Nick Cegelski with 30 Minutes to President's Club. I know you didn't expect me to call you this morning. Do you mind if I take 1 minute? I'll tell you why I called you specifically, and then you can tell me whether or not it makes sense for us to speak. What I've done here is I said my name, I said my company. I'm a professional. I've got nothing to hide. I'm also calling out the elephant in the room. Look, I know you didn't expect me to cold call you today. And then what I'm saying is, do you mind? I'm giving them control. I'm saying, do you mind if I take 1 minute? That's answering how long this is going to take. And I'll share why I called you specifically. That's important also. I'm not one of these auto dialers who's like just ripping a bunch of calls to a bunch of people that I don't actually know. Remember, I did some research on that step 1. I did that 3 to 5 minutes of research. I listened to their podcast. I know they're a relevant prospect. So I'm saying, do you mind if I take 1 minute? I'll tell why I called you specifically. And then you have control. You can either say yes or you can say no. 8 times out of 10, they're going to give you a thumbs up and say, go ahead, you've got 1 minute. The other 20% who are going to say no, you wouldn't have gotten them no matter what opener you used. So again, Justin, this is Nick Cegelski with 30 Minutes to President's Club. Look, I know you didn't expect me to call you this morning. Do you mind if I take 1 minute? I will tell you why I called you specifically, and then you can tell me whether or not it makes sense for us to speak. Hear the tonality in there. I'm almost like the kid who got his hand caught in the cookie jar, and I'm like, look, I know you didn't expect me to call you this afternoon. You've got to have a little bit of fun with it there. So that's what I'm saying with my cold call opener. I can sort of talk through the rest of the cold call if you'd like me to, or we can move on to the voicemail and other pieces. Let me know what direction you want me to go.
Yeah, let's move on. While we move on, I want to just see in the audience right now of the 200 and something odd people who are here, how many of you are dialing? I know everyone emails. I know some people are using LinkedIn, but how many of you are actually picking up the phone and cold calling? And so in the chat, hit dial, hit yes. Let me just see some. Yeah, dial, dial, dial. Look at you all. Wow. Oh, all right. All right. Email, dial, dial. Yeah. Wow. That's blowing up. That's so great to know. Because another fun fact, uh, I'm working with a well-known dialing company to then start building into Woodpecker the ability to call. And so that's actually in the works right now. And so I'm excited to see that there are so many of us that are using a dialer and dialing. So that way, in the near future, you won't have to be on your phone, or you'll have one single place to click and call to make it really super easy. And so we'll be announcing that also sometime later on this or next month. And so in the meantime, I'd love to move on, and let's see what we got on the next set here. All right. We've
So
got,
if we should talk about the voicemail, but stay on this slide. So
yes.
what I'm doing is if they don't pick up the phone, which actually happens more often than not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my voicemail to direct to email. Most customers or prospects are never going to call you back. You should not be aiming for a callback with your cold call. I hear a lot of voicemails where people are like, hey, this is Justin with Woodpecker. Nick, the reason I'm calling you is a lot of CFOs are more interested in efficiency, and they go on and on and on. And at the end of the voicemail, they say, please give me a call back. And then they say their phone number. Those voicemails get deleted, 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 deleted. When you start your voicemail with, hey, Nick, this is Justin with Woodpecker, you sound like every other salesperson that is leaving a voicemail when you lead with your name and your company. And so my recommendation is flip your voicemail and leave that at the end. And it might sound something like the voicemail literally is going to be Justin. The reason I'm calling you is I just listened to your interview on the XYZ podcast. There's no need to call me back. I'm about to send you an email with the subject line, just called. Whenever you get a second, I'd appreciate your thoughts on that email. By the way, this is Nick Cegelski with 30 Minutes to President's Club. So what I'm doing is when they hear that voicemail and they listen to it, they're hearing, Justin, I just listened to your interview on the XYZ podcast. That's what it starts with. That gets them to listen the rest of the way through. Again, because I'm leading with that personalization piece. If I couldn't find anything there, literally what I might say is, Justin, I'm about to send you an email with the subject line just called. Whenever you get a moment, I'd appreciate your thoughts on that email. This is Nick Cegelski with 30 Minutes to President's Club. So if you can't find the personalization piece, you can just revert to that script. What I am doing here is I'm saying, look, no need to call me back. Check your inbox. I want to divert their attention, or direct their attention rather, to email. And what I'm doing here is I'm sending a pretty simple thoughts email. I'm just bumping it up. This is an auto email that goes out immediately after the call task is completed. And so what I'm doing is I'm calling, leaving a voicemail, and they get an email. That's 3 notifications on their phone. That is by design. Again, spike in their attention.
Yeah, one of the things that you and I talked about before is how phone calls, although I don't answer them, a lot of people don't answer them. Visual voicemail, I think everybody looks at them.
Yep.
And that when that transcription shows up and it's a short, simple, almost the same way that we should be writing our emails, you actually now have like almost voice transcription email as voicemail showing up on people's phone. And so maybe they'll never listen to it, but they see that your name, and then they see the subject line that you enunciate. And then they actually, what I love is then the email can actually show up in their inbox. And when you get into this in a second, there's actually a special feature in Woodpecker that's highlighted in green here that allows people to continue to receive the previous emails part of the thread without creating a new one. And I think that's important to cover as well as you get into this next section.
Well, and Justin, that's why I want that first email. That's why I want to front load my effort and make that first email the one that I put the most effort into. Because if I'm using that feature, that email gets bubbled up again and again and again. And in this case, the subject line is not going to be just called. It's going to be your interview on XYZ podcast. And I want that to come up again and again and again, because that's my best subject line. That is a personalized subject line that is exclusive and specifically about you. No one else can receive that subject line. And so it's important to me that I bubble up my best email, that I get multiple bats with it.
Yeah, I think, I wonder how many people using Woodpecker know about this feature and use it and, like, its importance as continuing to be part of a thread, not creating new emails, and so maybe you could cover why that's important.
Yeah, I mean, again, I wanna that first email is my best email. There was a personalized element. I did that 3 to 5 minutes of research, or maybe if you're a little slow, you need 6 to 10 minutes of research. Again, confine the research, know what you're looking for, but I put some muscle into that email. That's not an auto email, that's not a script email. That's an email where I wrote, "Justin, I caught your interview on the XYZ podcast. I liked your take on A, B, or C." I had to do some work for that individual prospect. I want them to see that again and again and again. And that's why I'm threading it there so that that best email gets more at bats. And this person indeed sees marketing's not doing that. Marketing is not threading emails like that. Um, I'm a human being. I'm trying to get in touch with you specifically, which is why I listened to your podcast. I shared my take on it. I've called you. I've emailed you. I am specifically and intentionally trying to get a hold of you. And I'm trying to signal that through my contact strategy.
Fantastic. I want to answer one question and have us move on. And so Martin asks, why do we leave it blank and we hit that button to the right that's highlighted? And so that just goes back to the fact that you have that first email that went out with that subject line, and that when this one goes out and it says thoughts, it refers back to the previous one. So that way it is attached to and is part of the single thread. And so you're essentially almost like forwarding, like, hey, thoughts on this? And then included in this email will be the first email or previous emails, depending on how many uh, these you leave blank, and of those that you activate with that feature will continue to thread throughout. And so, does that answer your question, Martin? All right, let's move on now to the next cold call here.
Yep. So what I'm doing here is I'm shifting now into I've done some of that upfront work with that personalized email, the first call, the LinkedIn connection, a little bit deeper in the sequence. They've not responded to me. I'm calling again. No, this is day 5. I only called a couple days ago, but I am calling again. Again, most salespeople, they err on the side of being not aggressive enough. There's a spectrum of being too aggressive where you might call the person every 15 minutes. Okay, that's probably unacceptable in a B2B environment. And then what most salespeople do, which is they call every week or every 2 weeks, which is not intense enough. My recommendation is if you're ever wondering how aggressive should you be, err on the side of actually being a little more aggressive. I think most professional salespeople are not they're not aggressive enough. So I'm calling again on day 5, and it's the exact same format as before because this person has not responded to me. So if they don't answer the phone, I'm going to leave a voicemail that's a little bit more focused on the people. So if they do answer again, I'm going back to that permission based opener. If they don't, I'm saying, Justin, the reason I'm calling you is, and this will be in the voicemail, it'll say, Justin, the reason I'm calling you is most attorneys are sick of accounting for every billable second of their time. I'm calling you about something that makes that problem go away. I'm about to send you an email when you get a moment. If you wouldn't mind giving me your thoughts, I'd appreciate it. By the way, if this isn't something you're interested in learning about, please let me know. I certainly don't wish to be a pest with my follow up. What I'm doing here is I'm calling out the problem, and then I'm also calling out, I just want a response from you. A yes would be great. I'd like to learn more is great, but a no is okay too. I don't want to be a pest with my follow up, AKA, I'm going to keep following up with you. And so I'm calling that out in the voicemail. And I think we'll see next that there is a follow up email that gets sent immediately after this one as well. Oh, shocker. I know my own cadence. So what happens next is boom, this is an auto email. I'm saying I just tried you at the office. Are you open to speaking sometime next? Again, I'm calling out the fact that I just called you and I'm asking, would you be open to speaking sometime next? No hard ask, no 15 minutes on Tuesday or Thursday. It's direct. Okay. So at this point in the campaign, what is happening is I am starting to shift to some more automated elements. So the subject line is missing time. Again, one of the problems that this product solved was it's hard for attorneys to keep track of all of the places that they spent their time in a given day, and they often will have missing time. And what I'm doing with this email is this is just vague enough that it could be from a colleague or it could be from work. I'm not trying to deceive the person, but what I'm not doing is I'm not making my subject line boost billable time by 128 hours a year. I'm making the subject line around a problem, and I'm making it around something that could conceivably be about them. The intent is to get the open. There's a fine line here. You do not want to be unethical. You don't want to deceive the other person, but I also don't want to pound my chest and make it a marketing email. Again, I start with a problem. Attorneys that neglect to track 100% of their time are throwing money in the trash can. Ping, the product that I sold, ensures billable time won't slip through the cracks. Here's some social proof. Firms using Ping boost billable time by 128 hours per attorney per year. What I'm doing with the last piece is I say, lunch is on me if you're open to check it out. And what I would occasionally do, if I had the bandwidth, I might copy and put a link in there to a DoorDash gift card or something. But the whole idea here is calling out a problem, very brief description of the solution, one sentence on some social proof. Lunch is on me if you'd like to check it out. There's no question mark in this email also, which is a little bit unconventional. Most prospects are used to seeing, would you like to learn more at the end? So I'm changing it up a little bit. But this is a new auto email. This is not going to be as effective as email one, but it's still, you'll get a decent response on this. Boom. We move again, day 11 to a cold call. Exact same thing. I'm using the permission-based opener. And with my voicemail now, I'm changing it up a little bit because what you'll see next is we have a video embedded into the email follow-up. And so the voicemail is going to be something like, Justin, this is going to be a little unconventional, but I'm about to send you a video message to prove I am indeed a real human being. When you get a chance, I'd love your feedback on the video. That's it. I'm calling out. I'm about to do something a little unconventional. I'm not like every other salesperson. And the intent, again, is I want to get them looking in their inbox and responding to my message. And there's me. So what I'm doing here is this is a pre-recorded video. I'm not recording a new video for every single prospect. Frankly, that takes a little bit too long. And again, to the rule of diminishing returns, I could, in theory, film an individual 16-second video for every single prospect, and that might boost my response rate 0.2%. That's not worth all of the extra time that I spent filming all of those separate videos. So this is a pre-recorded video, and the message is literally, I'm indeed a real human being. Let me know what you think, or if you hate the video. I'm trying to be a little bit cheeky and a little bit fun. Again, marketing would never send this email. You can see I've upgraded my background a little bit too. I've learned to keep some plants alive. Back then I didn't have any plants. But that email is pretty simple.
It's
And
what
I think got something from Woodpecker here.
Hello, yes. And so back with talking about integrations and the product and how to get more out of everything that you're hearing and seeing today. And I actually saw some of these questions in the chat, is that we actually have an integration with a company named Dub Video. And so if you see there's that little green circle pointing to me on the right, I'm wearing a very colorful shirt that day. And so what you can do is you can pre-record these videos with a Dub Video embed, and then either automatically drop them into your sequences and it'll continue to run, or you can record right on the fly like you can see here for that one time. Or if you really wanted to make an individualized one, you could. Now obviously there has to be some pretty good reasons to do that, but there's a really simple Chrome plugin through Dub that will just drop that little colorful D with a play button in the middle into that. And so if you're interested in Dub, I dropped the link into the chat to check it all out, and you can go from there. And so I just wanted to point out that, multimodality, multiple touch points, and of course the sales cadence moves on. So let's check out what's next.
Let's keep rocking. I will make another call here. I'm going to point out one thing a couple folks asked about, which is, what do you do if you don't have a direct line to the person? What do you do if they have a gatekeeper or an assistant that answers the phone? Here's what you do. They answer the phone and they say, hello, Justin Zimmerman's office. And I say, hey, could you please connect me with Justin, please? Not explaining who I am, what we do. I'm not giving them extraneous information. I'm saying, hey, could you please connect me with Justin, please? And I'm saying it pretty direct, right? Half the time, they'll put you over right away. The other half, they'll say, what's this regarding? Or what is this about? And you'll literally say, it's about his interview on the XYZ podcast. That's assuming that I'm able to connect what he talked about on that XYZ podcast to the problem that I solve. So when they answer, I literally have to say, look, I just listened to you on the XYZ podcast. Here's why what I'm calling about, I think, is relevant. I have to be able to connect it to. If they say, I need more information than that, you might have to give a little pitch. You might have to say, look, I listened to an interview on the XYZ podcast. One of the priorities you talked about was A and B. I'm calling about something that I think is related to that. Could you help me understand the best way to get on his calendar or to share my message with him? Right? I don't need to give them too much information. I'm trying to enlist them to help me figure out what's the best way to get with this person. What's next is an auto email, was the video that bad? I'm following up with that email where I had that video, and I'm trying to call out, was the video that bad? It's a little bit cheeky. It's a little bit playful. I'm not like saying, we're the leader in automated time tracking technology. I'm calling out, hey, I sent you a video. Could you go watch it? I just want a reaction from it. I just want a response at this point. Here is where I'm starting to throw some Hail Marys. What you'll see with all of these emails in the half of this sequence is they're automated. So at this point, I have determined that it is a better use of my time to put my manual effort, that research, the calls on other prospects. And so I'm sort of shooting from the hip here. Attorneys often tell me they wish they had a better way to do their timekeeping. Would you be open to seeing a better way? Auto email, I'm trying to get a response here.
We're coming into the home stretch here.
Yep. Now is when I start to do a little bit of breakup-esque emails where I'm trying to get them to tell me no. I'm almost soliciting the no here. I've stopped talking about, hey, would you like to learn more? And I'm now asking, hey, should I be going in a different direction? This is important to call out where the ask is now different. Before it was, hey, do you want to see the products? Do you want to learn more? Would you like to have a chat? Now what I'm saying is, hey, please tell me if this is worth me even pursuing. Often what you'll get with these style of emails is they'll say, hey, this isn't relevant right now. Or, hey, we just brought on a new CFO. We can probably take a look at this next quarter. You'll often get objections here that are related to timing, or you'll solicit objections. That's good. I want to get those. So what I'm doing here, I'm a little bit playful. Hey, you're either chasing down timesheets, aka you're putting together your timesheet, or these emails and calls have been totally irrelevant. Would you mind letting me know if I'm in the wrong place? Give me the no, give me the rejection so I can know, should I spend my time on you or not? And you'll see that again in the next message, I think. And all I'm doing here now is I am asking for a thumbs up or thumbs down. Same philosophy. I'm saying, look, I haven't heard from you. I'm going to assume this isn't something that's relevant. Would you mind telling me yes or no? And you would be amazed by the number of people who say, look, I appreciate you contacting me. I appreciate the persistence. This isn't, we just bought a new time tracking system, so we can't buy yours now. And so my whole intent here is I'm trying to solicit a no from the other person.
So this is the 25-day long sequence. We're on day 24.
Yes.
Before I click the next button, tell me what happens on day 25, because there is no slide. There is a moment now where, what do you do next?
Right. And Tony actually asked something related to it. How long do you wait to recycle no responses or no's or no response at all? I have to make a determination of, is this person worth continuing to contact? And so I might look at them. I have to make a determination. Should I put this person into a different campaign? Should I put a task to re-enroll them in a campaign in a quarter? Should I say, hey, you know what? They didn't open any of my emails. They didn't even respond to a single message at all. I'm going to move on with my life. So I'm making a determination. Do I re-enroll this person in another campaign? Often what I will do is I'll wait a quarter before putting them in a different, similarly structured campaign where I will reach out again. But I'm making that determination. And a lot of this depends on what's my role, what's my territory, what's the total opportunity in my territory look like. If I have thousands and thousands of untouched accounts, I'm just going to totally move on with my life. If I've only got 50 accounts and this person, I really need to break into this account, I'm going to try to find another way. What I also might do is I might say, hey, this person is not responding to me. Let me find a different contact at the organization and go after them. So if I was contacting the CFO here, maybe I'll contact the COO instead. So here's where you have to do a little bit of thinking and determine, what is the next step with this account? The contact didn't respond. What should I be doing with the account, the company?
I'm going to wrap it up right now. I love finishing on time. Boy, it is a a special moment when we could start on the hour, end on the hour. And so I'm going to let everybody go back to their day. For everybody who answered the questions with the recording, I'm going to send that to you. And for everybody else who answered some of the other follow-up things, I'll make sure that you get to those next right steps. See you then. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.